Hello, my name is Matt Kixmoeller. I'm the VP of Products here at Pure Storage. Welcome to our 4-part video series on VDI. We've done a ton of work here at Pure Storage to test and optimize our storage for the VDI use case. And we fully believe that all-flash VDI is the best approach to deliver a consistent end-user experience for VDI, as well as a great administrative experience. So in this series, we have 4 independent videos, the first of which that you're seeing here today. We'll talk about the transition to next-generation VDI and why we think the storage landscape and needs are really changing. The second part will go into our VDI reference architectures. We've worked hard to test our VDI solutions with the leading vendors out there and have come up with a set of validated architectures to help you confidently deploy VDI on all-flash storage. The third will get into a little bit of the end-user experience, and we've done some detailed performance benchmarking using standard industry tools to show the end-user experience of all-flash VDI and show you the advantages. And then finally, the final video will get into the admin experience to talk a little bit about how all-flash VDI can really improve the administrator's life in a VDI environment. Throughout this series, we'll talk a little bit about all the assets we've created and show you hands-on test results, show you some of this stuff in action through demos. So without further ado, let's dive in. So if you were out looking for one of the worst workloads for a traditional storage array, you'd be hard-pressed to find something worse than VDI. It turns out it's about a perfect storm of toxicity for a traditional storage array. It delivers tens to hundreds of thousands of IOPS down to the storage. Those IOPS are highly random because they're a result of random user interaction with the system. It tends to be very heavily write-centric, as all those changes and updates that the users are doing are consumed and pushed down to the storage. And then finally, it's completely bursty and unpredictable, where throughout the day you have a general load, but there'll be admin tasks like logging in and recomposing and other things that'll dramatically shift the load. And so the net result is that VDI is just a very, very tough workload for traditional disk-based storage to handle. We've spent some time talking to our key customers in the VDI space, and we've seen some common threads and heard some stories around issues that tend to derail VDI deployments. And the interesting thing is that if you look at these issues, they all boil down to legacy storage. So the first issue is storage cost. One of the biggest challenges around VDI over the past few years has just been that end cost. Turns out that in most cases, VDI isn't cheaper than existing solutions. And the biggest dollar value item there is storage. If a traditional VDI deployment might cost anywhere between $1,000 to $2,000 per desktop, well over half that cost often comes from the traditional storage array. The second issue is failure to scale. A number of customers have found that they'll do a pilot for VDI with a few hundred users, usually in their IT staff. It'll seem to go great, but then as they move to scale that infrastructure to thousands of users across their environment, they'll hit the bottleneck of their storage arrays controllers, where they just can't get more storage performance. And then, of course, expansions to that tend to be very, very costly. The third element is end user performance. At the end of the day, end users are skeptical about VDI in general, and they're almost unfairly looking for a bad experience. And so if there's any hiccups in the end user performance, you can imagine the calls that'll come into your call center complaining about the new VDI infrastructure. And then finally, the fourth thing I'd highlight is the potential move from link clone type desktops to persistent desktops. Most of the existing storage vendor architectures around VDI fully rely on link clones to deduplicate the data and have a reasonable shot at reasonable costs at the storage tier. But unfortunately, as you move to using some persistent images, those really balloon the storage and can, again, really cause issues with the overall cost of storage in the environment. The other interesting trend here is just a change in adoption and thought process around delivering VDI. If you look at the first generation of VDI, which we call VDI 1.0, most of that was really done for call centers, hospitals, just task worker type implementations, where fundamentally the key technology on the VDI side was using stateless images, link clones, and the like. And the whole ROI and justification on VDI was all around cost. And so there was a lot of focus around driving down the cost of storage. Now, as you move to VDI 2.0, we're seeing a huge expansion in the types of use cases for VDI. Organizations are starting to roll out VDI to productivity users, executives, and the whole justification has evolved as well. It's now about mobile computing, bring your own devices, being able to have the same desktop experience from multiple machines, and ultimately having a lot of protection and security from the IT environment. Now, as you might imagine, the storage kind of constraints or requirements for VDI 2.0 are also very different. In this move, we go from only using stateless link clones to often having to use a lot of persistent desktops, because obviously users want to keep their personalizations of their desktop. And there's a whole new set of requirements. Cost is still important, but things like reliability, very high performance, and being able to scale to larger and larger user counts also become very important. So let's talk a little bit about Pure Storage. If you haven't heard about us before, Pure Storage is an all-flash array vendor. And our key goal is to drive the cost of all-flash storage down to a point where it's actually affordable for traditional disk-based storage use cases. And in most cases, we can actually drive that cost down below the cost of traditional spinning disk. We do that in two ways. We've built our array from the ground up, and we use 100% consumer-grade MLC flash memory. And the resiliency algorithms within the flash array help make that consumer-grade flash memory resilient to the point where it can withstand 5 to 7+ years of life in the data center. The second thing we do is we use inline data reduction. So we'll use dedupe and compression inline as the data flows in the array to be able to reduce common bits and store more data on the same amount of flash. Now, this dedupe and compression plays very well on a variety of different application types, from databases to virtual machines, but probably the most reducible workload out there is VDI, especially in full clone persistent desktop type environments, where literally that same image is being stored hundreds or thousands of times. And so in a traditional environment, we might see anywhere around 5-to-1 data reduction, but in a VDI environment, we often see over 10-to-1 data reduction on persistent type images. So let's explore why we believe that Pure Storage is the ultimate storage for VDI. And in our minds, the all-flash VDI experience is really the key thing you should be going for. The first thing is just that end-user experience. At the end of the day, when you're transitioning to this new virtualization infrastructure, it's important to deliver for end users the very best possible interactive experience. And ultimately, the competition here is not old laptops. The competition is users getting new laptops with SSDs. And so you need to be thinking that you have to out-deliver a traditional laptop with an SSD. And fundamentally, Pure Storage can help do that because you're linking high-end data center server resources to deliver desktop computing with very, very fast 100% flash storage. And so ultimately, Pure Storage helps deliver hundreds of thousands of apps at the ready to be able to give users the best end-user experience possible. The second key thing is affordability. As we talked about earlier, it's not uncommon for traditional storage to take anywhere from $300, $500, $700+ per desktop in a traditional VDI environment. Because of Pure Storage's inline data reduction, we can deliver all-flash VDI storage for just around $100 a desktop. Those numbers obviously vary quite a bit depending on how many users you put on the system, and in highly consolidated environments, we can even go much lower. But later in this video series, we'll actually show you our reference configurations and the dollars per desktop costs. The third dimension is scale and reliability. It's important from a VDI storage platform to be fully reliable and fully highly available. If you roll this out to your entire organization, you're at the mercy of their productivity is at the mercy of the VDI environment. So performance matters, but also availability does. The flash array was designed with no single point of failure, so it can withstand the loss of any single component within the system. And similarly, scale is very important. When you start with hundreds of users and need to be able to scale to thousands, it's quite expensive if you run out of performance in the array and have to start adding additional arrays. So as we talk about the configurations later in this video, we'll show you how you can literally go from a very small deployment for just a pilot, couple hundred users, on to thousands in the enterprise. Finally, we've heard from a lot of VDI admins that frankly, they don't want to be storage admins. VDI is often run in the desktop administration silo of the IT enterprise. And in that environment, the same admins are running the virtualization infrastructure and the storage infrastructure. So we've worked very hard to deliver Pure Storage Flash Array as the simplest storage to administer, especially in a virtualization environment, where if you're using either View or Citrix on top of vSphere, we can fully manage the flash array right within the vSphere web console. All right, thank you very much for this quick introduction. In the next video in this series, part 2, we're going to dive deeper into the provisioning tasks and show you in action how the flash array can reduce both link clone and persistent type desktops down to just a fraction of their storage space. And if you'd like to get more information, including our reference architecture for